Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of My Boomer Buddies podcast, where we tell it like it was and is. By popular demand, we've got Bill Neuenfeld. Newt is back, and we're going to talk about some nostalgic things, and we're going to talk about current things that we face as baby boomers. Bill, welcome back to My Boomer Buddies podcast.
Thanks, Rick. It's good to be back.
We just got back this past week from a trip to see fellow boomer buddy Dan Vikstrom, and boomer buddy Joe Chesley came down from Minnesota, and we had a pretty good time, didn't we?
Oh, it was great. We had a few beers, had a lot of laughs, visited and met some wonderful friends that Dan has made down there, and we played a little golf, kind of a little bit of a dog track, but I think the course was at least as good or better than all of us on that day. But
Myself, I'll speak for myself. I don't golf well, but I had fun hanging out with you guys. Now, that's a 55 plus community down in Mission, Texas that we went to. And Dan has a beautiful home, and you go out his back patio, and it's right on the 18th green, which is pretty cool. Like you mentioned, we had a few beverages and met some wonderful people. And one thing I was struck by, Bill, is all 3 days we had something going on with the people in that community. They're very tight. And like you said, they're wonderful friends to Dan.
yeah, I think the whole aura of those over 55 parks is keeping everyone busy. I think some of it comes internally from maybe the quote unquote management or the leaders, but some of it comes organically. I think they really like to see each other. They have a morning bike ride. They have what do they have? They have bingo, and then the men got together for anti bingo and smoked cigars. So it was interesting. I kind of think that's a lot what happens in those kinds of parks.
Yeah, the first night we got there, they had cigar night, and it was hosted by Dan. So we didn't have to go anywhere. And it was fun sitting there on the patio with all these new people, breaking down film, if you would, about all the characters. And there are some characters. I
Oh
really,
yeah.
I really enjoyed them. And we also got to see them, if not another time, a couple more times in the following days, as there was a potluck at one of the other places. And that was a trip right there. Yeah, we rode around in golf carts. And while we were doing that, I had a memory of my folks, 20 years ago in Peoria, Arizona. I had a community much like that, and they had a golf cart. And I remember thinking of them talking about it. And then I went and visited and I witnessed them having just a ball. And I'm thinking, man, they're old and it's like a little fraternity, for them
Yeah.
down there. And they got their
Yeah.
golf carts and they're tricked out and they wear wherever they're from, they wear the clothing with the Vikings or whatever where they represent. And I just smiled at that. I get it now.
It was interesting you say that. I guess it was a subtlety. I noticed it, but it became second nature that most everyone wore something that spoke to where they were from. Of course, I think in general we do that as the public. We like to identify with things, so we
Right.
wear.
And it's really highlighted. One thing I noticed, we're not as young as we used to be. As baby boomers, we've thought of ourselves as immortal. And now as we we go to bed earlier, I noticed you and Joe in particular went to bed a little bit earlier than I did, but we need to do that. We hit our mortality. Through doing that, we have to take measures now, don't we, to try to eat healthier. We take vitamins and things like that. And I noticed we shared a few things that we do.
Yeah. By the way, have you tried the L-theanine yet? I mean, yeah.
No, I haven't gotten out. I will.
It's worked. It's been a good supplement for me, and I can't say it's revolutionary, but Aaron and the kids really they like it. So
I know Dan's brother-in-law, he shared a concoction he takes every morning with olive oil, lemon juice, and what's the kick?
Cayenne pepper.
Cayenne peppers. I
He
got to
says
make sure I have some. I'm
you
going to
might
start trying that. See how
you
I
might
like
want
it.
to start with just a little bit of that pepper. What did he say? A teaspoon of it. In the end, he end up taking it in there every day.
Yeah,
He
what do
said
you
you
say?
might want to try just a little less to start. I thought, well, I guess so.
Yeah, I'm going to be pretty conservative at first with that, but I am going to try that. We are mortal beings now, and we got to take care of
Sure.
ourselves. We have more doctor appointments and all that now. And you boomers listening out there, I'm sure you can relate. If you want to share anything with Bill and I, please email my boomer buddies 4 at gmail.com. We'd like to hear your comments and your take on some things and any content you want to hear. Bill's a regular. He's been here before and he knows the routine, and he's one of your buddies now too. I appreciate knowing him all these years. And it's also fun when we got together. It's like no time has passed. But when we look at each other, time has passed. Yeah, how do we deal with that? I know how I deal with it. Your personality's still the same. My personality's still the same. We've got more life experiences now that we can share. But it's a lot like when we first met. We shared our experiences and they gel pretty well. And I think that's why we're such good friends. And the same with Joe and Dan, who are down there as well. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but it's like putting on a pair of comfortable shoes again when we get together.
Yeah. I had someone describe me one time as you're like an old shoe. I thought, should I actually take that as a compliment? But
I
I
think that
did.
was
But
me.
yeah,
I think that was me, Bill.
man, uh, gee, thanks anyway. But honestly, at this point, I don't feel around you guys, I feel the same as I ever did. The daily agendas are a little different. We talk about our kids, our wives, our significant others, our,
Good.
smattering of life's experiences. And what was that?
Grandkids.
Oh, yeah. And, oh, jeepers. Yeah. That's a big, so, he's showing a lot of pictures and, that's, and we're all in the same boat. You get kids, you get grandkids, you love them all. And so it's just fun to share and look at pictures. And of course, then Dan's son came down and brought his daughter, Dan's granddaughter. And now I feel like she's another part of my family, and,
Right.
you know,
She was 5 years old, very smart, and she gained 3 more grandpas with her visit.
that was funny. It was Grandpa Dan, Grandpa Rick, Grandpa Bill, and Grandpa Joe. And she hooked right onto that, man. She was
Oh,
loving that. I got 4 sugar daddies now.
yeah. And she played it up pretty well
Oh,
too.
yeah. No, no. She was an expert at that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That made the
So,
trip even more fun. Another thing, I mentioned that we've changed since the 45 years we've met. Now we pee in Morse code. We, we, we go to bed earlier, we get up earlier than we did back in the day. It's all the same. We're still buddies. We just
yeah,
adapt, right?
we drink fewer beers over a shorter period of time and less often. Right. I mean, I used to, when we would be together, I mean, it was just a way of life. We're drinking a beer, drinking a beer, drinking a beer. Now, after 2 or 3, I'm like, oh,
Let's elaborate here. We're boomers, right? We grew up in what we feel is the greatest era for cars, music, clothing, whatever. We're grateful to our parents, the greatest generation, but they taught us to work hard. A lot of us didn't have too many jobs. Our parents had one job usually, and they worked it all the way through and got the gold watch at the end.
yeah.
We had a few more jobs, but I know our kids, they hop jobs all the time. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any
There's a,
thoughts on
well,
that, but it's
well, it's
incredible.
just it's a different mindset. This morning, and one of the gals that works behind the desk there, her husband has been coming in with the baby quite a bit. And I said, is he working now? No, he quit his job. Oh, okay. Well, you got a new baby, trying to set up a new house, just got married. I said, what's he going to do? Well, he isn't quite sure yet. He just wasn't real happy where he was at, and he's looking. He's got several prospects, and in my mind, I never quit a job without another job. And
Right.
our parents, of course, as you say, never quit the only job they had. They just hoped they'd get paid more. We quit and moved for better working conditions, better salary, better situations for our family, time off and such. And now, if they just don't feel good about the job, they quit. And there's another job waiting. I don't know about you, Rick, but when I came out of college looking for a teaching job, you almost couldn't find one. Every job
Right.
had 500 resumes sent for it. And I did not ever secure a teaching job because of so many people in it. I ended up in the insurance business, and everything works itself out. But
Sure.
it's in today's world, the world of the right now. There's a million jobs out there that these kids can do, and they're getting paid a lot better than we were. Now, on an inflationary scale, how much better? I don't know if I could answer that. I'd have to really, but I think it's a bit better than we were doing, man. I don't think I was barely
It
making
is.
$10,000 the first year out of college. That ain't good. Now they're making 40, 50 right out the gate.
Right. And their expectations are after a year, they're going to gain
Mm-hmm.
another
Mm-hmm.
$20,000. And that just blew me
Mm-hmm.
away. They expected a lot of things without really doing extra. I know you and I and fellow boomers out there, when we worked, if we had to put in extra time to do the job right,
Sure.
we did it. Okay. Now we're considered foolish for having done that. When that 8 hours is done, I saw firsthand, they didn't want to pick up the phone and answer from somebody
Yeah.
that needed help, job related. They said, nope, when I'm done, I'm off hours, I'm off hours. There may be something healthy to that, but it goes against the grain of our boomer
Us, yeah.
thinking, right? In my mind, it's like, okay, if I can take that phone call at 7 o'clock at night from this independent contractor to get the job done while they're there, it'll save me a
Yeah.
headache in the morning or having to plan for them to go back because they didn't know what to do. It's different. The mindset is
I
definitely different.
One difference is we were task related or task driven, and
Right.
now they're all about themselves and they're not as task driven. They're driven by, I'm giving you this many hours and you're giving me what you agreed to give me. And if you don't increase what you give me after year one, I'll go somewhere else because there's a bunch of jobs out there. It's probably good for the worker in a way, but my DNA tells me, and Aaron and I tell our children this: work way harder than you're paid for and be task driven. Don't be hour driven, and go above and beyond the task. And the right people will notice it. If they don't, that's the job you move on from. If they do and they reward you, then you can stay. But it always gains you favor to be the better person. Regardless of whether or not you get the increase from this employer, you'll get it from someone else. And on top of that, your dignity will always be high because you know you're working as hard or harder than you're being paid for. Don't complain. Sometimes make sure they know you're doing it, but it's how I'm driven, and I think it's a good way to be.
It is how we were taught to be. That's the way it was. We looked at our parents. Some of them were loyal to a
Yeah.
fault with their jobs. And I know that I was taught to work hard, keep your head down, work hard, and it'll pay off. And I think I had maybe four jobs in
Yeah.
my career, maybe five, a couple at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, side jobs and everything. But it is much different. And I know we're generalizing. I don't want people that aren't boomers out there to, to go off the deep end over what we're saying. Generally, what we're saying is very
Mhm.
true. It's something that as boomers, we need to recognize. And I tell you what, there's some good people out there. I worked with some really good people that were younger than me, and they, I'm thinking of one person in particular, very good work ethic and almost an old soul. So, yeah, that's the work environment nowadays. And I'm very glad to
Yeah,
be retired. And I know that you're still working, but you have a job where you're a
yeah,
pilot. And if you want to talk about that for a
sure.
couple of minutes.
One brief thing back to
Mhm.
the work ethic now versus before. I'm not trying to say that it's not right now, and the way people in the workplace are is not correct. I think the workplace has driven people there too. So all
Mhm.
I'm doing, and I hope everybody understands, we're only trying to point out the differences there. So yeah, my job as a pilot, I kind of got lucky. And when I say that, I went through my entire life as a salesman, but I learned how to fly during that time. I started late flying, age 39, because I didn't ever think I deserved to fly or that I had the money to learn how to fly, when all along I probably did. So it was always one of those,
Mhm.
it's way out there, it's not for me. But at some point I realized, wow, I can do this. So I finished and got my license and kept selling and then dabbling in it. I got my commercial license, dabbling in it and helping. And then a little over 5 years ago now, I approached someone at the local airport because there was a King Air 200 stationed there that does medevac, particularly patient transfers, one level of care to another, a lower level to higher level. We take transplant people and things like that. So I approached a nurse and a pilot that were standing in the FBO, and lo and behold, that pilot was resigning, and he'd gotten another job, and they'd be looking for someone. So they gave me someone's name. I called them, and Shazam! All of a sudden, I'm doing this job, and it's a different job. It's very gratifying. You help sick people get to a place where they can get well again. It can be demanding. I work 12-hour shifts, 7 days in a row, but then I'm off for seven. Then I work 12 night shifts in a row where I'm on call all night long, and then I'm off for seven. So the night stuff's kind of tough on me, and I've been able to shed a little bit of it to the younger guys, but it's a super gratifying job. When you talk about work ethic and time, the FAA dictates how much time I can fly as a
Sure.
pilot. We're under the Federal Code of Aviation Regulations, Part 135, and they are specific. So,
Now it's interesting as boomers, there's the first tier boomers, I call them, and then the second tier. We're pretty much second tier on the front end of that second tier. For us, we now are starting to retire or have recently retired. I know today when I went in for my 6 month oncology appointment, I had to bring out the Medicare card for
me
the
too.
first time, and then the supplemental, card that I have now too. And I was wondering how that was going to go. And the person that helped me, she was kind of looking, and she ended up scanning both the cards just to make sure everything was in there. But I witnessed somebody last year at the Walgreens picking up a prescription, and they were a little nervous about it because it was a first time thing. And they went in and deleted all of their old information that Walgreens had. They had to delete all these other things. It's kind of scary. Like,
Yeah.
okay, they deleted that. Well, it's not in effect anymore, so it's okay to delete it. But anybody out there listening or watching, you've gone through that. You know what we're talking
Yeah.
about right now.
It's kind of interesting
So,
because I just did that yesterday. I'm scheduled for a procedure next week, next Wednesday, and I thought, well, I better let the hospital know. As of 1/1, I changed to Part A and B of Medicare and then a supplement because of a problem with our company health insurance, which is a whole nother subject. But anyway, um,
yeah.
I have a high level of confidence in it because I was in that business in my first career, and I know how regimented Medicare pays. and it's not a shall I say, it's not a super deluxe plan, but it's steady Eddie, man. And if you got a good Medicare supplement, that plugs right into it, and there's very little to worry about from a non-payer claims standpoint.
You had an advantage, Billy, because you were
Yeah.
in the business. But when you start getting to that age, the time of year, all the
Yeah.
commercials come on. Especially we watch a lot of Me TV, and that's the target audience for
Me
Medicare and
TV.
and the supplemental. And you get a little
Mhm.
scared, like you're going to make a mistake picking the wrong supplemental plan. I know Sharon and I, we went through that. We're pretty comfortable now. We made the right choice for us, we feel, and we had some good help on the
So
other line. So all of you out there that are facing that, just educate yourself like anything on what's best for
one
you.
quick point, and this could help our viewers in dealing with a claim that I had on our company health insurance. I was speaking to one of the vendors and telling them, please be patient as I get United Healthcare to pay this. Anyway, and I told her I was going on Medicare. She said, there's a website you can go on that's very informative. It's called
Hmm.
MedicareUniversity.com. And she said there's a bunch of YouTube videos about it too, which, I always forget because, again, we're boomers, right? We had to learn from a book. Pull out the service manual on that Ford now. Cue up a YouTube video and you can change an engine. So anyway,
Right.
she turned me on to that. So maybe if that'll help our viewers, YouTubeUniversity.com, and or just go on YouTube and Google Medicare supplements, and ask a lot of questions.
We appreciate you watching My Boomer Buddies podcast. Go on to YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube right now, hit the share, hit the like, and subscribe, and tell your friends about it. We're getting a pretty good catalog of episodes. Bill's been on with Quincy before, and he's been on by himself. You got to know him. Go back to the catalog and check out some more. You can also check us on Buzzsprout and Spotify. That's another way to check out My Boomer Buddies podcast. We appreciate you spreading the word. We're going to wrap this up, but I want Bill to finish off with a joke. He's known for his jokes. Go ahead, Bill.
It's interesting, but since I moved to Arkansas, I don't have the joke network here that I had in Minnesota. I think Minnesota people really know jokes, but a lot of these are jokes I remember. But there's a lot of Ole and Lena jokes, of course. So you'll hear me tell
Oh, sure.
those. But
You
yeah, so
betcha.
you betcha. So Ole and Lena were having trouble with their sex life. So they went to the counselor and he said, yeah, Ole, do you love Lena? Oh, yeah, I love her. Yeah. How about you, Lena? Do you love Ole? Oh, I love Ole, yeah. And he turns me on so much. I don't know what's going on, why this isn't happening. And so they spoke for quite a while. And the counselor said, I think if Lena could have a hot milk bath, maybe she would relax. And Ole said, yeah, we'll go over to Sven's farm. He's got lots of milk there. We'll go there. So they left and they went home, and they went over to Sven's about the time Sven was finishing milking for the evening. And Ole and Lena walked in and said, Sven, Lena's having a hard time relaxing so we can get it on. And would you mind if we got some milk and got her in a milk bath? And Sven said, oh, yeah, my wife and I do the same thing. In fact, right through that door, there's a tub and there's a robe hanging there, Lena. Just go through there and we'll pump the milk right through. It's warm because it just come out of the cow's teats. And so Lena disappears through the door, and Sven looks at Ole, and he said, Ole, would you like that milk pasteurized? And Ole said, no, just up over hoots is good enough.
Pasteurize?
So
Oh,
that's
Billy,
one of the
Billy,
Ole and
Billy.
Lena jokes.
Anybody from up north way up in Minnesota, you hear a lot of those jokes. So, Bill, thanks again for visiting with us. One of the Boomer Buddies. Always good to have
Thanks,
you
Rick.
on here. Please tune in again next time for My Boomer Buddies podcast. For Bill Neuenfeld, I'm Rick Reed. and we'll see
around
you
the block.
around the block.